If you found yourself wanting to purchase a home, perhaps you've gone through the process, but you were denied a loan to be able to purchase a home. We're going to talk about why you are struggling to purchase a home and what you can do to fix it. So, with the overwhelming majority of people, when they go to purchase a home, the reason that they get denied or are not able to purchase a home is usually for one of two reasons. You could break it down to three, but it comes down to credit being one, or debt to income ratio. And you could break debt to income down into two separate categories with debt and income. But for the purposes of this podcast, we're going to keep them the same. So credit and debt to income ratio, likely you fall into one of those two categories. Either your credit's bad and you need assistance with repairing your credit, or you need to work on your credit to get it to the point to where it's high enough for you to be able to qualify for the loan programs to be able to purchase a home, or your debt to income ratio is out of whack. So you might have great credit, you pay all your bills on time and your credit card balances are low, but when it comes to debt to income, maybe you have a lot more debt than what your income can support if you were wanting to add a mortgage to that. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can work through these things to get over that hurdle so that you can become a homeowner. So we'll start with credit first. When it comes to credit, there's a lot of different things on your credit report that mortgage lenders look at. It goes beyond just looking at your credit score, because there are individuals, believe it or not, who have 700 credit scores that don't qualify to purchase a home because there are some other items on their credit that are reflecting negatively upon them and is preventing them from being able to qualify. So when it comes to credit, first and foremost, you want to pay all of your bills on time. That's the biggest section of your credit. 35% of your FICO credit score is just your ability to be able to make on-time monthly mortgage payments, or not just mortgage, but on-time monthly payments for everything that shows up on your credit report. Credit cards, if you've got student loans, if you've got a car note, anything that shows up, and even the things that don't show up on your credit report, because those things can end up showing up negatively on your credit report later if you don't pay them. So you want to make sure you make on-time monthly payments for all of your debt. And then in addition to that, there are other items that can also reflect negatively on your credit as well. For example, if you've got maxed out credit cards, that's something that can drive your credit score lower, rather, because your utilization is going higher. So you want to try and keep those credit card balances low, ideally around 30% or less of your credit limit. So what does that mean? It means that if you have a $1,000 a credit card with a $1,000 limit on it, you want to try and keep the balance at $300 or less. So 30% of whatever your credit limit is, that's the max that you kind of want to keep your credit card balance to. I know life happens and sometimes you have to go above that, but at all possible, as far as it's depending on you, try and keep it below that. If you can keep it below 10% or less, that's even better. And you'll see your credit score go up a little bit higher if you're able to keep that at 10% or less. Some other things that affect your credit negatively, as you probably can imagine, are if you've got judgments, if you got liens that are against you, that stuff shows up. If you've got bankruptcies that are, if you've gone through a bankruptcy recently, particularly within the last 2 years, that's going to be something that's going to destroy your credit. Even if you're 3 years past or 4 years past, you might still be in that rebuilding phase of trying to rebuild your credit. And a bankruptcy is something that, even though you can purchase a home after 2 years separated from a bankruptcy being discharged, even though you can purchase a home within that period of time, the bankruptcy itself stays on your credit report, or can stay on your credit report, for up to 7 years. In some instances, 10 years, depending upon the type of bankruptcy and if it was discharged or dismissed. So even though you might be 3 years, removed from that bankruptcy being discharged, it's still showing up on your credit report. It's something that lenders are still looking at, something that they can still utilize in terms of weighing in on your decision and how easy or hard it is for you to be able to get approved. So these are some of the things on your credit that can affect you when it comes to you having a credit profile that is ideal, or at least acceptable for a mortgage lender to say, okay, you know what, this is someone that I'm willing to take a risk on. Because that's what it is at the end of the day, is your credit profile is a snapshot in time that communicates to a lender, how risky is it going to be for me to loan you hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to purchase a home? And if you've got missed payments, you've got late payments, you've got collections, you've got charge-offs, you've got judgments, or you've got bankruptcies, you've got a bunch of negative stuff, and then you go to a lender and you're wondering, well, why can't I get a loan to purchase a home? You make it so hard. It's like, well, the lender has a lot of money that they're going to loan you, and they need to know that they're going to pay they're going to get their money back, essentially. And if there are other creditors or lenders that have loaned you money, but you've not paid them back, how does that reflect upon a lender who's going to give you $300,000 or $400,000 to purchase a home? How do they feel about loaning you that money if other people that you've borrowed money from in the past, you've not paid back on time? You have to think like a lender's going to think when it comes to them loaning you money. If you were going to loan money to a friend or a family member or someone that you didn't know, you're going to want to know, hey, is this someone that I can trust to be able to pay me back? Perhaps this individual never pays people back. They just borrow money and then you can't find them. They run off, they spend it, they blow it. They're not, frugal or wise with how they manage finances. That's going to play into your decision. It's the same thing when it comes to borrowing money to purchase a home. These lenders are operating businesses, and if they just give out money to people who can't afford to pay the money back, we end up in another 2008 housing crisis or market crash, essentially, because that's much of what spearheaded the 2008, crash, Great Recession, if you will, was that there were a lot of loans, a lot of mortgages that were written to people who could not afford to make the payment. And when you have that happen on a large enough scale, then you end up with a Great Recession, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into the mortgage industry. And this is getting a little bit into the weeds, so I'm chasing rabbits a little bit here, but it's a good rabbit to chase just for a little bit, just so you understand that part of the reason that the standards are what they are because there are a lot of far-reaching effects in the mortgage industry. When a lender makes a mortgage, that many lenders don't keep those mortgages. A lot of times those mortgages get sold in the secondary mortgage market. Most of them get bought up by Fannie Mae and then by Freddie Mac, and they get packaged into mortgage-backed securities. Those mortgage-backed securities are sold to investors who want to get a return on their investment. So they make, their return is the principal or the interest that you pay when you're making your principal and interest payments of your mortgage payment. So when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac get those principal and interest, they have now money to be able to go and purchase more mortgage loans. So this is a whole cycle. But if you end up in a situation where you have a whole lot of bad mortgages that people are not making the payments on, now you're in this situation where you're in a situation where investors are now not receiving principal and interest payments on their investment on buying these mortgage-backed securities. So they pull their money out of the mortgage market. Fannie Mae doesn't have any money to be able to purchase more mortgages. The cycle breaks, essentially, and now banks don't have money to be able to lend. It continues to trickle down into the Great Recession housing crisis that we have. Well, part of what came out of that was all the guidelines put in place about lending. And so to bring this back around to credit needs to be at a standard to where you're viewed as being a risk that the lender's willing to take. You may have made all of your rent payments on time for wherever you're living. And most people do. I think the number is like over 80% of people pay, all of their bills on time. However, if you make all of your rent payments on time and you are missing credit card payments, you're missing a car payment, you're missing a personal loan or student loan, then that's still going to reflect negatively on you. That's still going to be something that a lender is going to look at, because again, it's about a risk. And if they make a loan that's a bad loan, that reflects negatively on the lender. And somewhere along the line, someone's having to spend money in order to try to make up for, this loan that's now not being paid on. So it's all about risk here. And so that plays more into the credit piece of things. So having a credit profile that, one, you're making all your payments on time and you're keeping your balances low, that's really going to help you out hugely. Moving on to the second category, debt to income ratio. So after everything is great with your credit score, a lender is going to look at debt to income ratio. They're going to go through your income documents. They're going to look at how long you've been on your current job, how much money you make, and then they're going to bounce that off of your credit report to see what debts you owe, because the debts that show up on your credit report are the debts that a lender is going to go by. So they're going to look at your credit report and say, okay, you pay $600 a month in a car note. You pay $150 a month for credit cards. You pay this much for student loans. They're going to add up all your debts and they're going to subtract those monthly debts from your monthly income to determine how much money you have left over to be able to purchase a home. Now, if you don't have enough income left after those debts are subtracted to be able to cover a mortgage payment and still have approximately 50% of your income remaining, it's going to be a lot harder for a lender to be able to qualify you for a mortgage. So how that looks is, let's say that you make, we'll keep the numbers simple, we'll say $8,000 a month. Half of $8,000 is $4,000. So let's take that $4,000. That's how much a lender can use to qualify you for a mortgage. They can generally go up to about half of your income. So half of that 8,000 is 4,000. Now from that 4,000, we have to start subtracting out any debts that you have. So you got a car payment. Okay, so we subtract, let's say $500 for the car payment. So now at 4,000, we're at 3,500. Okay, you've got credit card bills that you pay. So let's subtract another $200 a month for all your credit card bills that you pay. So now we go from 3,500 down to 3,300. And now you've got some student loans that you pay. Let's say you got $100,000 worth of student loans. That's another $500 a month that we have to calculate. So from that 3,300, you subtract another 500. That brings us down to 2,800. Let's say that you've got a collection in your account, and that collection is let's just say $1,000 collection. So 5% of that $1,000 collection is going to be $50. So let's subtract another 50 from that 2,800, and now we're at 2,750. So now, assuming that your credit is still good and that collection is the only bad thing on there, and you've paid everything else on time, let's assume that you qualify. We're looking at $2,750 that we're going to have to be able to qualify you for a mortgage payment. So whatever priced home you can get for that $2,750, that's what you're going to end up with. That's how a mortgage lender is going to calculate your income and everything. And some lenders don't go all the way up to 50%. Some will keep you at maybe 45%, depending upon the loan program or depending upon the lender, because there are the guidelines that are set by FHA and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but then a lender can put more stringent guidelines on top of that. Maybe FHA says, hey, we'll let you go down to a 580 credit score with only 3.5% down, but a lender can say, nope, we want you to have at least a 600 or a 620 credit score before we can approve you for an FHA loan. And they can add those additional requirements on top of the FHA requirements and everything. So that's pretty much how your debt to income situation is going to look. And these are the two things that I have seen the most often. And it's not just what I've seen. This is also backed by research as well. These two areas, credit, debt to income ratio, are going to be one of the two areas that you most likely fall into in terms of why you're not able to qualify to be able to purchase a home. So if you want to purchase, the first thing you need to do, work on that credit. So the first thing I would say is to make sure everything's getting paid on time. Like I said, 35% of your FICO credit score is payment history. That's the biggest chunk, and it's over a third. If you miss a payment, that can drop your credit score significantly, especially if your credit score is high. The higher you are, the quicker it can fall and the more that it can fall. If you miss a payment and you already have like a 580 credit score, it's not going to fall as much as if you miss a payment and you had like a 700 or 800 credit score. So you want to make sure those bills are getting paid on time. The second thing you want to do is make sure those balances are being kept low. Your credit cards, if you have a $1,000 limit, $5,000, whatever that limit is on your credit card, don't charge it up to the limit. Don't max it. You definitely don't want to go above the max, because now you're getting hit twice. One, for going above the credit limit. Well, one for getting maxed out, and then two for going above the credit limit. So you want to keep those balances at or below 30% of what your credit limit is. 10% is even better. So work on those credits. Those two things alone can do wonders for you. There's a lot of other stuff you can do that I'm not going to go into in this podcast, but those two things alone will definitely help start you on the right direction, getting those debts paid down with a credit card and making sure everything gets paid on time. And then when it comes to your debt to income ratio, know how much you make. I cannot tell you how many individuals that I speak with that don't know how much they make in income. And they might know how much they take home, but when you're looking to get approved for a loan, a lender actually bases your income off of the gross, not the net. The net is what you see in your bank account after taxes have been taken out. But mortgage lenders look at how much you make before taxes have been taken out. So it's actually a higher amount. But a lot of people don't know how much they make in income. So know how much you make in your income, and then know how much you spend every month in debts. Now, I'm not talking about utilities, cell phone bill, streaming services, none of that stuff. I'm talking about stuff that shows up on your credit report. Student loans, credit cards, car payments, personal loans. Those are the four big things that you will see show up on your credit report: student loans, credit cards, car payments, and personal loans. So know how much you're spending in those things, and you can do the math yourself to see if your debt to income ratio is in an area that would help you be able to qualify for a home more easily. One tip that I'll give you that tends to hurt a lot of people is their car payment. A $650 car payment can cost you about $100,000 in purchasing power in a home. A $450 car payment can cost you about $70,000 in purchasing power. So let that sink in your mind for a little bit. If you go and buy that brand new car that you want to, be seen driving around in, and you're paying around a $650 a month car payment, that's $100,000 less that you can buy in a home. So if you would have qualified for a $400,000 home without the car payment, now with the car payment, you're looking at closer to around $300,000. If you say, okay, well, my car payment's only around $450 a month. Well, if you would have qualified for a $400,000 home without the car payment, now with that $450 car payment, you're only qualifying for about $330 or $330,000. So that's about $70,000 that is costing you to have that $450 a month car payment. Car payments can hugely take away from your purchasing power because they cut so deep into your debt to income ratio. I mean, if you think about it, let's say if you make, again, $4,000 a month, but you have a $500 car payment, that's 12% of your income is just in the car payment. 12.5% is just in that car payment. So you really want to think about if there's a way that you can get the house first rather than going straight and buying the car that you really want. Maybe you sacrifice in the short term, make it harder on the front end, easier on the back end. Sacrifice a little bit in the short term, buy a used car that you can pay cash for, because now you don't have a car note and you don't have any vehicle note that's going to be affecting your debt to income ratio. So maybe you sacrifice in the short term, get the car that's going to get you from A to B, because there are good used cars out there that you can buy that will get you from A to B without the car note. And now you can focus on, let me just get the house. Once you get the house, trust me, it's going to be easier to get the car. It's a lot harder to get the house if you buy the car first. But if you buy the house first, buying a car is not going to be that hard. It's not going to be that difficult. The qualification standards for buying a vehicle are so much lower than what they are to buy a house. When we look at houses, we're looking into your income. We're pulling a verification of employment. We're looking, taking a fine-tooth comb through your credit report. We're needing tax returns, possibly W-2 statements. When's the last time you went to buy a vehicle and they asked you to submit your W-2 statements? Or when's the last time you went to buy a vehicle and they say we need to contact your employer and get a written verification of employment for your income? And we need to see a 2-year work history. And when's the last time you had any of those questions when you went to go buy a car? You probably didn't have them at all because it's so much easier to buy the car. So if you have the house first, get the house that you want first, or the house that's going to work for you, at least for the next however many years you plan on living there until you exit out of that home and either rent it out or sell it and go get the next property. It's easier to get the house. It's easier to get the car if you buy the house first. But if you buy the car first, it's hugely going to affect how much house you can buy, or if you can buy the house at all, because I've seen individuals who they are already close to that 50% of their income limit in terms of just the credit card bills, the student loans, the personal loans, that you add the car payment to that. And now half their income is already spent up in all of these other debts. You can't add a mortgage payment to that and go purchase a home. So again, take the car payment away, keep the credit card balances low. Those two things alone are going to do wonders for you in terms of helping you be able to qualify for a home. So that's what I have for you. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. Please hit the subscribe button, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the episode. I'll be changing up the platform a little bit. I'm going to be bringing some individuals on to interview so that you can hear from some other people other than me that are really, they've got some great, interesting stories that I think are really going to pour into you and help just better your life and provide value to you as well. So that's what I have for you. Thank you as always. I greatly appreciate out of all the things that you could give your time to, you taking the time to tune into this podcast. And if there's anything that I can do to better add value to you in any area concerning real estate and finance, let me know, and I'll look into incorporating that into the podcast as well. So take care, be blessed. We'll see you in the next episode.